It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christie's. Tonight,
stay at home. Women's job is to stay at home. They only come out when there is a need.
some Muslims back Hamas, want Sharia law and women to stay at home. Devastating polling reveals the truth. Also, we have to face facts. There is a big problem with the views that too many Muslims hold in Britain. Here are those facts. Only 1/4 actively don't want Sharia law in the UK. 52% want it to be illegal to show a picture of the Prophet Muhammad. 57% want halal food to be compulsory in all schools and hospitals. Only 28% are opposed to making homosexuality illegal. On homosexuality, it's hardly surprising when you've got people spouting stuff like this online.
You're sitting next to a guy who's going to go and penetrate and sodomize another guy tonight. And you're gonna expect Allah to give you victory because you're standing next to a guy who's going to literally insert his genitals into another man's back passage.
We've spoken a lot on this show about the desire for a Muslim political party. Well, it turns out that only 16% of British Muslims would be opposed to that. Hamas is a prescribed terror group. They are a terrorist organisation. Well, 46% of British Muslims have more sympathy for Hamas than Israel. And only 1/4 of British Muslims apparently think Hamas committed rape and murder on October the 7th. This is stark. But here are the statistics that show that unless something changes, Britain is frankly doomed. Here are the stats for young British Muslims. 18 to 34-year-olds tended to have the most extreme views. 53% of them sympathise with Hamas, apparently. They are the most likely to want to make Islam our national religion, and they are the most likely to want to impose Sharia law. I think this is probably the nail in the coffin for integration and assimilation. It also appears that Muslims who were born and raised in Britain, who had exposure to our way of life and our culture, are more likely to have more extreme views. So what is happening there? I suspect that viral videos online are penetrating and poisoning young minds more easily than traditional hate clerics in mosques ever could, for example. We have young, high-profile Islamic scholars appearing to justify having sexual relations with children.
If you look just at the Quran, you will get the indication that you can have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old. No. The reason why it's haram to have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old is not found in the Quran at all. If you just read the Quran, it is halal, it would be halal to have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old. Chapter 65, verse 4. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us who you can divorce and who you cannot divorce. And then he says, وَاللَّائِ لَمْ يَحِدْنَ. وَاللَّائِ لَمْ يَحِدْنَ. And the ones who had never been pubescent before.
I think most people will find that concerning. We have people preaching about women being whores.
Any woman who comes out of her house perfuming herself, every single eye that looks at her, فَإِنَّهَا هِيَ زَانِيَةٌ. She's an adulterous woman.
Clips like that show that this really should be a women's rights issue. The pushback, I think, should be on women's rights, if nothing else. What would women's rights be in this man's version of Britain?
Allah brings down governments because what? When men and women start free mixing, Allah destroys the government.
Islam is reportedly the fastest growing religion in the UK, and there is a surge in young white British boys converting. The latest figures show that the generation of British Muslims coming through now are apparently more extreme than we've seen before. Look, people can make their own minds up about this. I mean, do you honestly think that the so-called religion of peace is here to assimilate and blend in, or not? Well, let's get the thoughts now, and I'm looking forward to this, with Abdullah Andalusi, who's co-founder of the Muslim Debate Initiative. Look, thank you very, very much. I know a lot of people, myself included, are concerned when we see figures and stats coming out like that. Is there a concern with assimilation? Do you think assimilation has failed?
I think you've perhaps forgotten the supposed traditional values of Britain. Britain is not meant to care what you believe. Many of the beliefs that you've cited from Muslims have held by traditional Christians, Jews, and many other religions in this society. In fact, for the majority of English history, they've probably been more aligned to Muslim views than your post-Christian, more atheistic, secular worldview.
Oh, have we still got him? I think we might have lost him. I'll just double check. Sorry, I'm not sure if we might have lost you there. I'm just going to ask you another question just to make sure. Do you think it's a concern? Have we lost him? OK, all right. Well, look, let me go to my panel. That's a shame. Hopefully we'll try and get him back. Let's get to my panel now. Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, journalist and broadcaster Benjamin Busworth, and political commentator Suzanne Evans. Hopefully we'll be able to bring Abdullah back very, very shortly. But look, Carol, I will start with you on this now. I think there is a concern, isn't there, when we look at some of the statistics that we've seen there about the number of people, for example, who would like to make it illegal to show a picture of the Prophet Muhammad. I mean, that is blasphemy laws, isn't it?
Yeah, that's to do with, absolutely. You know, I'm shocked by what I just saw there. I mean, those people should be behind bars now. They're advocating sex with 5-year-olds, my God. Yeah, for the people who want Sharia law, you know, Sharia law directly undermines liberal democracy. It's an extreme, oppressive law which mainly hurts women and children, by the sound of it, from your film there. You know, it has no place in this country. These people, you know, who are advocating this, you can't have two laws running in one state, because what they want is a state within a state, and that's called a caliphate, Patrick.
All right, we're just going to park it there, because I believe that we can just bring back in now Abdullah Andalusi. Yes, thank you very much. Sorry that we lost you there for a second. Look, more than 57% apparently want things like compulsory use of halal food. I think I'm a bit less bothered about that, to be honest with you. I mean, I think things like, for example, 52% of people making it illegal to show a picture of the Prophet Muhammad. I mean, that is tantamount to a blasphemy law, isn't it? Would you be in favour of that?
Well, Britain had a blasphemy law, actually, only until very, very recently. It was against the law to blaspheme the Trinity, and so on. So this was actually part of the British statute, traditional British laws for centuries.
But not that now, no?
Well, OK, so you want to, if you change your mind, that's up to you, you know. But the issue is this, that in England, you should have the right to have your beliefs as long as you don't violently force anyone else to change theirs. Why is that not acceptable for Muslims to hold this? 100 years ago, they were complaining about Jews not assimilating and doing that. That Jews were having a separate society, ghettoizing themselves, having beliefs that were un-British, as Oswald Mosley, the Union of British, the British Union of Fascists leader said. And now we're having the repetition of the same arguments, but now it's the Muslims' turn to be asked these questions.
Can I just ask, is that fundamentally true, though? I mean, when I look at these things now, like younger Muslims are the most likely to sympathise with Hamas, which are a prescribed terror group, or that younger Muslims are most likely to want to declare Islam as their national religion. There is, I think, a concern that potentially the younger generation is becoming, dare I say it, more radical.
No, a national religion, not the national religion. Look at the questions that was asked by the Henry Jackson Society, a society whose associate director, previous one, Douglas Murray, was famous for saying that conditions for Muslims must be made harder across the board. Some might say that it's an attempt at race baiting a religious demographic whose opinions are shared by many across the British demographic spectrum. I do think that this poll is a red herring to divert people's attentions away from the more pressing issue of a current genocide and 40,000 dead Palestinians, as well as UN reports of systematic rape of Palestinian women by the Israeli Defense Force.
Is it OK to have people at Speaker's Corner saying that the Quran justifies you having sex with a 4 or a 5-year-old?
OK, so this is someone I know, Mohammed Hijab. If you watch the entire video clip, he doesn't say that you can have sex with a 5-year-old. He then makes, you've cut it, continue seeing the rest of the clip. He actually explains that when you look at the other evidences that Islam has, it is clarified the age limit when you can have, when you can get married to somebody.
What is that age limit?
Well, in traditional Islam, as well as in Judaism and so on and so forth, it is puberty and mental maturity. So once you have mental maturity and the body is physically capable of reproduction with no health issues, which can depend on the individual and society and what have you, then that's there's no hard and fast. It must be 16 or 18 or 20.
Is that what would happen then? So under Sharia law, would the law of the land be that interpretation? Because only 1 in 4, apparently, Muslims say that it would be undesirable to have Sharia law, which the implication would be that they would be quite happy to have that in this country as the law.
Well, when you ask a Muslim, do you want Sharia law? You're basically asking them, do you want to live under, like you're asking a Christian, do you want to live under Christian values? You're asking a Jew, do you want to live under Jewish values? The Sharia law only applies to Muslims. It's never, ever applied, even for the medieval Islamic caliphates, it never applied to Christians, Jews, and others. It's only for Muslims. There's no point making Jews and Christians follow Sharia law. It's not going to improve their Muslimness, right? So the case is that Sharia law is only, Sharia, sorry, because the word Sharia just means law. Sharia is only for Muslims, and of course Muslims want to live. Well, me myself right now, I'm following Sharia by being polite and
I do appreciate what you're saying. Look, I do understand what you're saying, and you know, I do really appreciate you coming on. I do want to just drill down on this as the final point, though, which is that, you know, if we do have only 1 in 4 people saying that it would be undesirable to live under Sharia law, and if under Sharia law it would be OK to engage in sexual acts with someone of puberty or mental capacity, do you not think that's a concern?
Well, you're saying it's a concern if you have a law that allows people who are both mentally mature, so they're mentally adults, and they're physically adults to engage in consensual relations. So what would be your contention against that?
Will be that the law of the land at the moment is that you have to be of consenting age, which would be 16.
Well, you're currently 16, but in other European countries, it varies between 14 to 18. In some European countries, in some places, even 20 years old is the age limit, and 16 is sleeping with a minor, so to speak. So Britain might be called. So
you're not against it being younger than that. You wouldn't be against it.
I'm simply saying that you're asking Muslims what is the Muslim belief is in this poll, right? So they're going to explain it to you. They're not going to say that they want to change the law of the land, law of Britain, to make it into whichever system. That wasn't in there. But also, you see, the thing is this, the poll brought out some really strange results, because if you're arguing that we have to follow the majority opinion in whatever poll, according to this poll, 56% of the British public said that they don't trust Jewish community leaders in the UK when they talk about Palestine and Gaza. That's actually in the poll. So do we have to follow the majority then? Also in the poll, apparently the wider British public is twice expressed. 6% of the British public has expressed a positive attitude towards ISIS, right? So where's the outcry about this? Is the wider British public?
I think there is quite a lot of outcry on that. I mean, I've certainly expressed a lot of outcry about that on this show. But look, thank you very much, Abdullah. I would like to talk to you again, and I hope we can do that. So Abdullah Al-Andalusi, though, is the co-founder of the Muslim Debate Initiative.